On February 1st, 2019, members of the Mars exploration team gathered at NASA's JPL headquarters to say their final goodbye to one of space exploration's greatest pioneers, the Opportunity rover.
I wanted to say, with the completion of tonight's commanding, this concludes operations for MER-1, spacecraft ID 253. And on behalf of the entire MER project, we'd like to thank the DSN for over 15 and a half years of outstanding support from launch until tonight.
And this is Station 14 on behalf of the network. Thank you for your comments, and it's a sad day for all of us.
14, you are released.
And 14 copies.
MER project off the net.
In an instant, the lights went out on a record journey of almost 15 years. A far cry from the expected 90-day survival rate. In its wake, Opportunity has left a history-redefining legacy.
We have been given the opportunity by a team of engineers 15 years ago who built just two of the most extraordinary pieces of space exploration hardware ever conceived and built. You only get to do something like this for the first time once.
Well, sort of. After all, the program did construct twin rovers, destined to land in two locations on opposite sides of the planet, a redundancy designed to increase their chance of success. Spirit was the first to break away from Earth's gravity, with Opportunity lighting up the Florida night sky a few weeks later, as it too rocketed towards our closest planetary neighbor, Mars. It wasn't an easy trip. Solar storms a few months into the journey bombarded the rovers with brutal radiation. NASA's $850 million explorers weren't communicating with home. It was a nail-biting moment until Mission Control tried the old IT help desk standby, turning your rover off and back on again. It worked. First crisis averted. Now to the really harrowing part of the mission, landing on Mars. Hurtling at 16,000 miles per hour, about 10 times the speed of a bullet. The heat shield in front of the rover vehicle got about as hot as the surface of the sun. A supersonic parachute deployed.
Atmospheric entry.
It was time for everyone back on Earth to strap themselves in. It was going to be a bumpy ride.
Current altitude 8,000 feet.
The heat shield jettisoned. The airbags blew up in less than 1,000th of a second. And then she bounced.
Getting a bounce signal. We're getting a bounce signal. We're getting a bounce signal.
Getting confirmation the spacecraft is bouncing and alive on Mars.
And bounced 26 times.
We have a momentary loss of signal as the spacecraft is bouncing on the surface. It is difficult to maintain lock. We need to reacquire the signal to have positive confirmation of a safe landing.
But there's always a possibility something goes wrong, something you didn't account for, or just bad luck, like, really sharp pointy rocks right where you want it to land that might puncture the airbags. But these are the risks that you take when you're going someplace where you've never been, that you know is dangerous and unknown.
We're seeing it on the LTP.
We have a very strong signal in the left-hand polarization channel, indicating that we still have a safe lander signal on RCP as well.
Finally, the airbags deflated, and the solar arrays opened up, charging the power-hungry little rover. And she lifted her head, the panoramic camera, and sent her first beautiful "We Are Here" postcard.
When Opportunity sent back that first picture from Eagle Crater, That night is like burned in my brain. I will never forget it. It was such a dramatic image of Mars, and it was so different than any images we've seen before.
It was now time for Opportunity to get to work. Its mission, the quest for the holy grail of planetary exploration, liquid water. It was initially planned as a 90-day expedition that would stretch on for 15 years.
The Mars exploration program had this long-standing goal of searching for signs of life on Mars, but that's a really big question. That's a really hard question to answer. So we started with something a little more simple, a little more fundamental. Was there ever water, liquid water, on Mars? Where and for how long? And that was what Spirit and Opportunity really went out to go look for.
Golf cart-sized Spirit and Opportunity were designed to be wandering geologists. Instead of picks and hammers, though, they have little particle blasters that they use to take samples, and spectrometers and microscopes to examine them. And wouldn't you know it, fortune was immediately on Opportunity's side. Opportunity landed on a flat plain known as Meridiani Planum, before gently bouncing to the inside of a small meteorite impact crater.
Opportunity lands right from the get-go, discovery of water-formed rocks, right? You know, it came easy.
Here, she found little so-called blueberries that contained hematite and iron ore.
Opportunity found evidence of water just immediately below the surface in the shapes of the rocks. There was cross-bedding in the rocks, and then also in the minerals, this mineral hematite or hematite, that it's an iron mineral that forms in areas with a lot of water.
The next 56 Martian days, known as sols, were spent probing and analyzing the area. It looked as though Opportunity's landing site was once the shoreline of a salty sea, but one that was too salty and acidic for life as we know it. It was now time to leave the safe confines of Eagle Crater and strike out into the vast Martian terrain. Opportunity reached its next destination, Endurance Crater, after a 1-month-long 1-kilometer trek. Peering across the rim of the 130-meter-wide crater, it spent the next month detailing the 20-foot precipice. And then, in what could have been a mission-ending decision, gently descended. The next 6 months were spent analyzing the crater, where Opportunity would once again find evidence of ancient water. But it was too salty to harbor life. On its 315th day on Mars, the rover exited the crater, on its way towards its discarded heat shield, allowing scientists and engineers back home to examine the effects of the rover's entry through the Martian atmosphere, as well as the 9-foot-wide impact crater.
It taught us how to do surface operations. It taught us how to read the terrain and navigate and plot a safe path from one point to another. We did not know how to do those. It was all speculative.
Lo and behold, a few days later, Opportunity notched another first in space exploration, as it saw the first meteorite on another planet. Having spent close to a year on Mars, it was now time to head south towards Victoria Crater. But not everything went according to plan. On Sol 446, Opportunity ended up getting its wheel stuck, rendering it immobile. The culprit? An exceptionally tricky sand dune, measuring a whopping 12 inches tall. Team members back home would perform weeks' worth of simulations in hopes of finding the right way to escape the sandy clutches of what would come to be known as Purgatory Dune. Over a month later, it would finally free itself and continue on its long voyage.
What we found is the best way to get it out is just to put it in reverse and gun it. The rover eventually popped out.
Finally, 21 months after leaving its original landing site, Opportunity arrived at the rim of Victoria Crater. A colossal half-mile wide, 230 feet deep impact crater. A geologist's dream, but entering it was no walk in the park. It was here that the team caught the first image of the rover from space, sitting at the edge. Opportunity spent 6 months searching for a safe path in, when, in late June, gathering Martian dust storms threatened to kill off the hardy rover.
Every couple of seasonal cycles on Mars, they get these dust storms, and they can be global dust storms where they literally obscure the sunlight. They're solar powered. It's all about getting enough energy from the sun.
Opportunity had to hunker down for 2 months while dust storms raged, limiting the solar power to a level that nearly caused the permanent failure of both rovers.
So they went radio silent, radio dark for days. And so we didn't know if the rovers were dead or alive. And we programmed the rovers to wake up at a certain time in the future. And it was very dramatic because all of us were there in the control room waiting for the data to come down. And we'd gone days without hearing from them. And we'd seen orbital imagery of the planet just clouded in dust. Would they be alive? Would they tell us? And sure enough, right at the moment they woke up, they said, "I'm here and I'm okay."
Turns out, not all dust storms are harmful to the rovers. They can also be a blessing. Mars is riddled with dust devils. Dust devils that, instead of choking our roving ladies, kept them going long past their sell-by dates.
And dust accumulates at the rate of about 1% a day, which means that, after 100 days, most of the solar arrays would be covered by dust. And so that would mean we'd have, a 100-day mission, a 90-day mission. That's what we designed. What we didn't expect is that wind gusts or wind events or dust devils or something would come along and blow the dust off the arrays. I mean, it's like someone came by with a leaf blower and just dusted the whole rover off, and it was factory new again.
The revived rover eventually entered the crater and spent a year investigating the interior before setting off for the much larger Endeavour crater, a 13-mile, 3-year journey.
There were too many of these dangerous ripples in our way, and we actually had to take this circuitous route that at times took us away from the crater, only to then cut back and then approach it more directly.
During this trek, Opportunity would break the operational record for a functioning probe on Mars, a mark it still holds on its own, since its twin and mission mate, the Spirit rover, had its last communication with Earth on March 22nd of 2010, when its wheel became stuck in soft sand and could no longer adjust the tilt of its solar panels. Spirit eventually ran out of power, and NASA officially ended its mission in May of 2011, 2 months before Opportunity's arrival at Endeavour Crater. A very different place, geologically speaking, from either rover's landing site. It was here that the team first discovered veins of gypsum, a mineral deposited by liquid water, and clay minerals, which suggest an intriguing ancient history, which includes a potentially life-supporting water chemistry.
And because it's been able to drive that great distance, it's actually gone back in time. And what I mean by that is the geology is of different ages at different places on Mars. Where the rovers landed on Mars is sort of middle-age Mars. Where Opportunity has driven to is ancient Mars. And it's where different clues reveal the complex history of ancient Mars and has informed us about the ancient history of the planet, which is that it was very much Earth-like at one time.
As Opportunity explored the ridge of Endeavour Crater, it passed yet another milestone in March of 2015, having traveled more than a marathon in distance on the Martian surface.
Well, the requirement was for one rover to traverse at least 600 meters. I mean, that's, half a mile. And Opportunity has gone over a marathon's distance. So more than 26 miles, more than 42 kilometers on the surface of Mars, more than any other human enterprise beyond the Earth.
You could say the rover set the off-Earth driving distance record. By the end, Opportunity traversed more than 28 miles of Martian landscape, sharing more than 225,000 images of its surroundings with researchers back on Earth. Perseverance Valley, believed to be a water-formed gully, was Opportunity's final destination. It was here, on June 10th, 2018, Sol 5111, that Opportunity sent its last message, creatively and poetically translated by media outlets as, "My battery is low, and it's getting dark." This, as a massive and devastatingly dense dust storm approached.
And so the rover couldn't generate any energy with that. And so we saw the rover just shut down. And there was nothing we could do at that point because it didn't have power to keep going. And we just had to wait. And that's what we did do, is wait and wait and wait.
This is its last panoramic view. 8 months later, NASA would designate Opportunity lost. Its mission complete.
This mission accomplished so much more than we wanted to. It's mind-boggling to me. I mean, if you had told me around the time we landed that Spirit and Opportunity were going to each accomplish 1/4 or 1/10 of what they ultimately did, I would have been thrilled.
But while the operation may be over, its ultimate enterprise continues. New programs like the Curiosity rover, which landed on Mars in 2012, and the future Mars 2020 rover are designed to build on the contributions of both Spirit and Opportunity. Not only their string of scientific firsts, but also their emotional journey, illuminating the history and beauty of the Red Planet.
And it's just almost incomprehensibly remarkable and how much we have rewritten the Martian history books. We have to remember not the loss, but the gain that we've had over the many years, and what a phenomenal story, because it was meant to be a 3-month odyssey, and it's been an incredible discovery, and that's the great gift. That's the wonderful thing to remember.